Hello, everyone. My name is Olga Romanova. I'm alumna of University of Missouri Center for Agroforestry. And today with Dr. Sarah Lowell, we're presenting you the review on the paper of the food safety considerations of urban agroforestry systems grown in contaminated environments. Um, but first, I'd like to tell why this topic of food safety is so interesting to me. Growing up as a kid in Almaty City, throughout the summer, me with a bunch of my friends were eating hawthorns, mulberries, apples, cherries, apricots, plums, and other fruits grown on the trees of the common yards of apartment complexes like the one in the picture and along the streets of the city. It was a good food subsistence in the time of the deficit in the Soviet and early independent period. Many years later, studying in university, one of our ecotoxicology professors asked us to bring the woody species fruits from different parts of the cities where we lived. And I remember for the experiment showing the exceeding amount of some heavy metals in some of those samples. Since then, I'm quite cautious about the food grown in urban environment. But this topic has very many nuances, and we covered some of them in this paper. Let's talk about the urban agroforestry benefits. The interest in and establishment of urban gardens and food forests has been growing in recent years. And it's no wonder why, because it provides so many social, environmental, economic benefits, such as contribution to the local food security, cultural heritage, and community development, as well as aesthetics. It contributes to the green infrastructure and provides various ecosystem services, such as stormwater management. It reduces the urban heat stress, sequester carbon, and reduce noise contamination, as well as support biodiversity conservation through providing habitat for birds and insects. But we need to remember that urban environment has elevated levels of pollutions in the air, soil, and water due to the presence of a heavy traffic, industries, buildings, pavements, residues from gardening, and etc. And it results in the presence of different pollutants such as heavy metals, metalloids, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, petroleum hydrocarbons, pharmaceuticals, pathogens, asbestos, pesticides, and others. And some of them have been proven to be harmful for human health. Thus, grown food in urban environment needs to be studied well. And the purpose of this paper is to synthesize the literature that would shed light on the potential of agroforestry system to produce safe food in urban settings, considering the risk of accumulation of heavy metals, metalloids, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Reviewing the literature, I found and that in US there is not as much on the woody species, but there are some studies on community gardens and crops grown in contaminated environments. And the studies on the edible woody species grown in contaminated environments are done in Europe, Eastern Europe, and some countries of the former Soviet Union, as well as some others. What we cover in the literature review is the species suitable for urban agroforestry, as well as examples of an edible riparian buffer. Where also we review the contamination risk in urban environment and the safety of growing crops in such environments, as well as woody species potential to accumulate contaminants. One of the key findings is that the general trend of accumulation in urban grown vegetables decreases for heavy metal in the following way. Soil accumulates the most, then root, then shoot, then leaf, and fruit accumulate least. And for the PHA, it's the most is accumulated in the leaf, and then root, shoot, and the fruit. Another general trend is that the tree fruits usually accumulate lower level of both heavy metals and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons than vegetables. And that the fruits of the trees and shrubs usually accumulate less of contaminant compared to the other parts of the plant. But these trends are not always consistent, and even in a small pool of literature, exception can be found to nearly every general trend. There are many factors that influence accumulation, including the pollutant, physicochemical properties, level of contamination of the air and soil, the soil type and characteristics, type of the species itself, and even within the species, the cultivar and the cultural development stage can show different accumulation levels. Main conclusion points, what we make is that urban agroforestry has the potential to contribute to food security if it's done safely. Food grown in the urban environment have some risks to accumulate heavy metals and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. However, contamination risk is generally less with the fruits and nuts of woody species than vegetables. However, those trends are not always true, and thus more research is needed to understand the risk of growing edible fruits and nuts in urban settings. Saying that, it's need to be noted that in the studies, what we look through in this paper, those that have found exceeding amount of pollutants in edible parts of woody species have been done in close proximity to the industries, mines, and heavily trafficked road in developing countries where lowest standards of fuel and emissions can be still present. Um, and also, the general rule is that prior to establishing the community gardens, same as the food forest, it's best to test the air and soil in the area for the major pollutants. And certainly, the proper washing of the food produce reduces the risk of for the health. Another topic what needs to be studied is the daily intake and the health risk, because even if the amount of some pollutants are exceeded in certain fruit, it might not pose the risk for human health. If you want to learn more, please read the article and let us know what you think. Thank you.